Okay. Good evening, everyone. With the time being 6 p.m. on Tuesday, September 8th, 2020, I will call this meeting of the Webster School Committee to order. As a reminder, on March 12th, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order modifying certain requirements of the open meeting law to enable public bodies to carry out their responsibilities while adhering to public health recommendations regarding social distancing. The executive order relieves public bodies from the requirement in the open meeting law that meetings be conducted in a public place that is open and physically accessible to the public, provided that the public body makes provisions to ensure public access to the deliberations of the public body through adequate alternative means. In this case, we're utilizing Zoom, and we've listed information for joining the meeting on the school district website. One other reminder, this meeting is being recorded both video and audio, and it will be posted on the district website. Excuse me. The first item on the agenda is a superintendent's report. Good evening, Dr. Goguen.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. And it's nice to see all the faces on Zoom tonight. I'm going to start with a brief update on our personnel. We've been very busy. We have our welcoming Kristen Economou as our Park Avenue ELL teacher, Sabrina Prince as our grade 6 ELL teacher, Nita Kapoor as our grade 7 math teacher, Jessica Emery as the Bartlett High School long-term sub. Lois Taylor has been appointed the administrative assistant for Park Avenue, the school year position. And we've welcomed Nicole Berry, a special education teacher at Webster Middle School. We have received the resignation from Patrick O'Connor, grade 6 math teacher, and the resignation from William Helfich, the person who was just recently hired as the grade 7-8 ELA teacher. I have news on the waiver that we have applied for with the Commissioner of Education. I'm pleased to say that the Commissioner has approved the time on learning waiver for Webster Middle School. Park Avenue did not need a waiver because they met the time on learning requirements to have Fridays as a half day of synchronous learning and the other half of the day for planning and family outreach. He did not approve it fully for the Bartlett High School. So that will mean that the teachers at Bartlett High School will have to just plan some asynchronous learning for the afternoons for the students in order to obtain some Friday planning time and family outreach. And Mr. Thomas is working with the staff on that. The reopening of school, I'm just going to start by saying it was certainly the strangest opening I've ever experienced in my entire career. Strange in that we were all working remotely from our office and trying to maintain connections virtually. Very different than a typical school year. Different, not bad, but different. We set out at the beginning of the year mission to really work together as a team, making the acknowledgement that this is certainly going to be a year like none of us have ever experienced, and that the best way to get through this is together as a united team. And I'm pleased to say that we are continuing to do that in Webster. You know, we're all on a learning curve right now, and I think acknowledging that has de-escalated some anxiety. I know for a fact the work that we've done over the summer in terms of planning for safety has been extensive, and I'm hoping that the staff that have entered into the buildings can see that. And we will continue to be working on two-way communication with our staff, but also our families. As you know, the Commissioner has given teachers 10 days of professional development and time to plan. And we've had a very structured plan of training over last week. And this week we have some structured planning, but we also have time for teachers to work together to plan their lessons ahead, because the blended learning approach is definitely something that's new for all of us. I would just like to toss it over to Jill Chapdelaine. I want to give her a big shout out for single-handedly putting, I think, 148 live links into all of the PD grids and making sure that all of those sessions went off with individual facilitators. Even though we expected to have some glitches, and we will certainly continue to have some technology glitches like every other school across the nation. We are handling them as promptly as they come in and in a very calm way. And I want to give Jill a lot of credit for organizing that. Jill?
So I just want to, add to that and just say that Webster is an amazing community to work with. And I think that we should all take a moment and feel really proud of what everyone is doing as a collective unit. I've never witnessed anything like this in my lifetime. The hours that people are putting in, the lack of sleep, the workload, and everyone's doing it. They're just doing what they need to do to make Webster shine. And we were talking about this today, Ruthann. Webster is coming out on top during one of the worst crises that we've ever been through. And just because we're administrators, we're going through it too, right? The school committee's going through it, we're going through it, teachers are going through it, and students are going through it. But let me assure you, we started by planning in a very highly strategic and thoughtful way what we were going to do this summer. And I would say it's going along exactly as we anticipated, with lots of bumps in the road. One of our first messages to staff was expect technology problems. They're going to happen, and we're going to learn from them. If you were to read the PD feedback from 3 days ago, you might be, wow, there's a lot going on. The day after that and the day after that, and just today, I feel like people are getting their sea legs. And that was our plan. We wanted the first day to have everyone together. We brought everyone together remotely. Ruthann, you put on an amazing presentation, and you learned how to do that by yourself. You didn't have any help with that. We're all doing our thing, right? So that went off beautifully. And then we gave people time to do their mandated training to keep everybody safe, right? And then we gave everyone lots of time for collaboration. We didn't want to start bringing in any presenters, whether they're internal or external, until everyone's sea legs were, firmly planted on the ground. So I just feel like we should be very proud of what we did. We had 157 PD sessions. I want to thank the staff who created invites for Zoom, and some of them had never done it before. And I'll be honest with you, I did my first one less than a month ago. So the learning that's going on by all of us is beyond comprehensible, right? So I'll be very quick because I just did that off the top of my head, but I'll be really quick. We knew teachers needed time. We brought in internal and external staff to deliver PD on relevant topics: trauma, social emotional learning, behavior, resilience. Oh, we had a wonderful person internally that did that. We had on remote learning, stress and anxiety, the effect of stress on learning, equity, psychological safety. And we had a kickoff session on remote learning with an expert in the area, Mike Flynn, who came to Webster personally. And that guy is hard to get. And he kicked off the session on Thursday. And today, all of our teachers took a 3-hour session on how to do remote learning that takes the anxiety level from here to like here. So I feel like teachers were saying by the end of the day, oh, it's all about teaching practices? Yes, it's not about the technology. That's the tool, right? So they're getting that. Now, the technology's there. We have to help them with that. So tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, and Monday, there's lots more planning time, lots more preparation time for the school year. We know teachers desperately need that. Friday, we squeezed in a few more sessions, like things that teachers have been wanting forever, like phonemic awareness, and we have some special ed specific training that we're doing, Wilson reading, that's very exciting. So we're doing a lot. And we pulled this off, I'll close with this. We pulled all this off this summer while integrating all of our curriculum into single sign-on Clever. If anyone knows what that's like, that's a year-long process. And that took hours to do, and we're still in the final stages. We're transitioning to a new Zoom platform. Best thing Webster ever did was to have the Zoom platform where we have all these bells and whistles. And we also did this while waiting on grants that we were promised. We were supposed to get them weeks ago, and somehow we're pulling this off. So I could give you all kinds of feedback. I'm not going to give you feedback. I'm going to read one person's feedback, which really hit my heart. The person just said very briefly, I just want to say thank you for all the PD planning and communication. I honestly think this is the most organized beginning of year PD I have ever seen. That in the midst of this crisis was like icing on the cake. So I'll just leave you with that. I don't know how we did it, Ruthann, Mo, Kathy, everybody at central office, all the teachers, everyone pulled together and rallied, and it happened. And we're still in the midst of it. We have, what, 5 days left?
This is just the beginning.
So they all
Rest up. We all have to rest up. It's the beginning. It's a team effort. Thank you, Jill. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I do want to let you know that we have been keeping a close eye on enrollment. As you know, the school model that we're starting with is a remote model where our teachers come in and only the high-risk kids are coming in. We have seen an uptick in requests for students to be homeschooled. We have 43 new students that have submitted homeschool applications. We had 13 existing students from last year. So we have a total of 56 students that are homeschooling. Homeschooling is different than opting for just a remote session and staying remote. And we do have a number of families that are opting to stay in a remote setting. Our current enrollment numbers, I'm just going to give you a quick snapshot. We do have new students also entering. We have 60 new kindergarten students that are registered. We have 24 new students between the grades of 1 and 4 at Park Ave. We have 19 new middle school students between the grades of 5 and 7. And we have 9 new Bartlett High School students between the grades of 9 and 12. So we have 112 new students. And as you know, we centralized registration, and Ms. Desiree Moniz is in charge of that, and our office is busy. People are coming in still to register, so we anticipate that our numbers will increase. At this current moment in time, and this is just a snapshot, we have 388 students enrolled for Bartlett, 576 enrolled for Webster Middle School, and 706 at Park Avenue, noting that we do not have all of our kindergarten students registered. So that's a total of 1,670 students, compared to last May, the end of May, when we had 1,805 students. So that's about 135 less students, which we're hoping that doesn't stay the same. We're hoping more students enroll, because certainly if that's our enrollment, there would be a decrease in some of our funding. So I just want to put that out there. I do want to let you know that for our cohort C group, our high-risk cohort C group, invitations to students that qualified under certain criteria have gone out from all the schools. And we are seeing that with some of the families that they are opting to stay home. So as of today, we have 21 cohort C students coming into Bartlett High School. We have 38 cohort C students coming into Webster Middle School, and 51 students coming into Park Avenue. And again, these numbers fluctuate. I just want to give you a quick snapshot on enrollment. And in my other updates tonight, I do want to let you know that unfortunately we were notified that we did not receive the continued funding for the 21st Century After School grant. We will have to wait another year to apply for that. So that was not what we expected. I also would like to let you know that I've been notified by the custodians unit that they would like to enter into negotiations, and that we would need a school committee representative for that. And I would also like to let you know that you know, we are being tasked right now to figure out lots of new problems, right? Everybody's rolling up their sleeves and doing everything and anything they can to make sure that the right things happen in our school. One of the things that is happening in my office in particular is our HR needs associated with COVID have increased. And so I've been spending much of my time the last 3 weeks with doing HR work with Lori. And if that continues, I will be coming or be asking you to start to think about the potential of hiring an HR part-time consultant to assist with this organization. We have over 280 employees, and the very COVID specific related issues take a lot of time and care. And it would be something that I think we could cover, certainly under the CARES Act funding, that we may need if it continues at this pace. And that concludes my report. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Through the chair.
Mr. Adamopoulos? Yeah.
With kind of having a soft opening the past week, did we notice any sort of bandwidth issues in any of the schools? I mean, obviously we're going to have about 1,700 kids logging in next week, but did we notice anything at this point that the schools can't handle the internet connectivity?
So,
Go ahead, Mo. Go ahead.
so it's difficult to tell because opening day, Charter had issues and it wasn't a bandwidth within the school, it was out on the roads. So we didn't have internet first thing on the morning before school started. And when it came back, it was intermittent at best. So there were a lot of problems that day, but I have noticed that over the week, I think it's gotten better every day. Charter came out, they did some work. We had upgraded all of our internet service to a gig as of July 1. So Charter's been coming out and putting the speeds up there. So we don't anticipate any problems moving forward, but it's something we're watching closely and monitoring.
Thank you.
Can I add something real quick? When we first come back to school, it's my understanding that the Chromebooks need to update. So when you first turn them on, they get all the things that get pushed out in the summer come out. So that first morning, aside from the connectivity issues with Charter, we also had a lot of our Chromebooks updating at the same time, like massive updates that came through over the summer. So we saw a significant increase. People were telling me today in their feedback, everything's working great for me now. It didn't work as good on Monday morning. So that probably attributed to some of it as well.
And you do have to realize we've done online testing. So we've had MCAS and Park and those things online. So we were testing grade levels out of time with no issues. So with our speed upgrades, I anticipate us being fine.
Especially at the middle school when they do MCAS testing, all the grades test at the same time. So they definitely push the limit there. But I think we are prepared to have tech questions, tech-related support for our families. I think the next layer that we're going to see is families having and needing assistance at home with getting on our systems and our software. So we're already thinking about that, Nick, and thinking about how we could set up that kind of support, streamlining that.
Thank
And
you.
we have great tech people under Mo's leadership.
Are there any other questions or comments for Dr. Goguen?
Through the chair. Long as we're talking about what technology has been brought up, do we have all systems in place yet? Webcams and everything, are they in and ready to, everything ready to go?
No, the webcams have been ordered and they're not all set up. So this is going to be an ongoing learning process. We ordered early, earlier than a lot of districts, but there's been a backlog on some of the technology, even some of the technology for the kindergarten and first grade students. So as soon as we get the materials, we will do the training and set that up. Actually, teachers received some of the training this week from Mike Flynn.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Dr. Goguen, going off of that, you mentioned that we don't have the technology yet for the kindergartners and first graders. Do we have an anticipated date on when we'll have that, or a contingency plan since school starting next week?
You know, it's, again, remote learning is not especially for young children at kindergarten and first grade, not sitting in front of a computer all day. We certainly don't want that. And we do not have the materials, and we have to wait for the materials. So the teachers will be doing, whether it's packets or sending work through their emails, they're going to have to be doing that. I don't know when the anticipated date of arrival is. Monique, maybe you do?
Yeah, we were originally told that they would be in end of September, early October. That has been pushed back. So till mid-October now, maybe mid to end October. As you know, there's a lot of trade stuff going on. It was nothing short of COVID with all the trade stuff going on with China. Many of the chips are created over in China. So there were shipments that were coming in from China that were actually stopped at the border and sent back. And so manufacturers are scrambling to try and have these chips developed in the US to catch up with the stock, but it's just so backlogged with all the trade stuff going on with China.
We're in a lot better position than many other districts because all of our kids grades 2 and up have a device already. There were districts that didn't have that one-on-one setup yet. So we're in very good shape compared to many other districts.
Mm-hmm.
But we're at the mercy of the manufacturers.
Absolutely. And hopefully the web cameras will be in sooner than later. We actually had ordered them some time ago, but then I switched the order because somebody said they could get them sooner. So I'm hoping they'll be in. I was told there was a 2-week lead time on that, and we should be getting pretty close. So I'm hopeful. I sent the guy an email asking him if he could give me a hard date on those. So hopefully those will be in sooner than later.
But just as a reminder, our teachers do have access to Google Meets and Zoom and doing, having the ability to see their children and talk to them without the web cameras right now.
Correct.
It's just more so the younger kids with not having a device.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really going to be the teachers, this week of planning. That's what they're working on. What are we sending home? What are we teaching? And trying to get those materials. What may need to go home. I think some of our teachers at the elementary school are even going to pre-package items and then set up mini drive-throughs for different grades because there will be things that students need at home to continue their learning. So we're kind of blending all that into the new phase of what teaching and learning looks like in COVID. And again, I'm just going to say, we know this is different. This is very different. And the one thing that we have to all tell each other is patience is a virtue because this is all new. This is all new. And that two-way communication with families is going to be crucial.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certain anybody that's watching the news is seeing that there's a nationwide shortage of all of this tech. So I'm sure you guys are doing all you can. Anyone else have any questions or comments regarding Dr. Goggen's update?
Mrs. Siddiqui?
Mrs. Blythe?
Dr. Goguen, I was just wondering, and I'm sure it's in the packet probably last meeting, but could you speak to what the PD will look like around, the hybrid model? Just, what put in place for supports for the teachers as far as doing hybrid? Because remote is all remote, right? And
no, our remote's been called fake remote.
Okay.
Our remote does have some students in the school. It has our group C students. So what our hybrid model and our remote models are going to have in common is there's synchronous teaching and learning going on. So we will have docking cameras, web cameras in the classroom. Teachers will have access to their Google Meets, and they may have students in front of them. Even in the hybrid model, half your students are going to be sitting in front of you, and then half are going to be home. The idea behind our model was not to have our teachers plan for 2 different groups. to try to create a positive classroom culture with students sitting in front of you. In the hybrid model, you'll have half of your students sitting in front of you, and then half will be at home working remotely, but your classroom will be some kids here and some kids on screen. So that is going to be a learning curve for everybody. So the web cameras are to have that live interaction between the kids too, between the teacher asking questions. But what we don't want, and this is again a learning opportunity, is for students to be sitting glued to their computer all day long. We want the interactions as if kids were sitting in the classroom, and we're going to all have to learn how to do that. Teachers are going to have to learn how to create that positive environment and build that relationship. So the hybrid model is based on sort of what we're doing with remote with the group C. You're going to have some kids in your class, but our hybrid model is actually splitting our student population in half. And some students will be in group A, some students will be in group B. The group C students will come 4 days a week, and they'll be on live learning and discussion and time for kids to break out and work on what they need to work on. And that's where, especially at the younger ages, the materials that kids need that they would normally have had in school, we have to plan ahead. So that planning time on Friday is essential for our teachers. What needs to go home with the kids when we're in a hybrid model? What are we going to be doing next week so that they have those materials? How do we need to set up drive-throughs for different age groups to pick up those materials? I'm looking at Lisa, and she made me remind me of Mafre donating the funds for grade 4 math manipulatives that can go home with the kids. So we're really going to have to look at teaching and learning differently. That planning is key for our teachers, and we have to support our teachers with that. So that's our goal. We will, I'm sure, have some curves and curveballs and bumps, but just like we've been doing, we take one at a time and one day at a time, and we solve the problem and we figure it out together.
No, it's not a public hearing, but can I ask a question through the chair and follow up to what Mrs. Blythe just mentioned? I just want to share some observations in the workforce related to the hybrid kind of model. So if that's okay.
Okay.
So just a couple comments, and I think strategizing with the teachers early might be helpful, is that I can tell you that being fully remote works really well because everyone is very respectful for this type of environment. But once we've gone back to a hybrid model in the workplace where we have a percentage of people working and some at home, what we've seen is a decline in terms of how the meeting functions. When there's 3 or 4 people in a large room and then some remote, the people who are in that room forget about the remote people. So I think early on, having some strategies and thinking through that is something that the teacher is going to have to give thought to, because the dynamics change dramatically when you're in that mixed model. So I just want to share that as an observation, that we've also seen the decline in the workplace in the same way, because people start having conversations amongst themselves, they get into that natural flow, and the people who are remote are sort of sometimes forgotten. So just an observation.
That's a great point. One final question, just a point of clarification about the technology, and I don't mean to harp on it because I know it's beyond our control. Did I understand correctly some correspondence that went out that we're giving new technology to some of our students, new Chromebooks?
Grade 2 students are getting new devices. Monique?
Yes, yep, they are scheduling now. All schools are scheduling how to distribute. So notice should be going home, or if it already has it, about what days will be scheduled to pick up their devices.
And they previously didn't have a device, or they did have a device?
Correct, they did not. They were in the building. So, yes. So we had carts in the building in classrooms, but grade 2, we have enough for the full grade 2. Those are new devices that we purchased that came in earlier.
Okay. I thought I read somewhere that students were getting new devices but didn't need to return their old devices.
The HPs that went home, the really old ones that are outdated, those were surplus. So those we did not need to collect back.
Are they something that we can, I know we've already surplus them, but could we have used those for the kindergartners and first graders?
No, that's why we didn't get them back. They're no longer updated and can't be supported. They're not working very good with, they don't work well with Zoom anymore. They're outdated. They can't pull up the screens. They're having a lot of issues with them. So it's not worth, they weren't worth returning. There's no value to them at all.
Okay. Thank you.
We talked about that, but they don't even function well on Zoom or any kind of screen, so.
Okay. Thanks. I'm sure you've exhausted all possible options.
We have tried and spun the wheel, let me tell you.
Are there any additional questions or comments regarding Dr. Goggen's update?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that. The next item on the agenda is the business manager's report. Good evening again, Mrs. Perangeli.
Good evening and thank you. The first item on the agenda is the school building committee update. We haven't had any meetings, but the OPM that we hired is working with the MSBA in creating the RFS. There's been correspondence going back and forth, and we're waiting for final approval to get the ball rolling to be able to advertise for that. Again, we're looking, it's a request for service for a designer for the Bartlett High School. So as soon as we get the go-ahead for that, we'll probably be scheduling some meetings because we'll have to get a committee together to review those designer selections down the road. Are there any questions on that? Second item on the agenda is the air quality report. In your packets, you should have received 3 reports for the schools. As you know, with all COVID going on, there's been a highlight on HVAC systems across the state. I'm really pleased with the reports that came back for Webster. I'll give you a high overview of those reports. I'll start with Park Ave. As you know, Park Ave is our newest building. We opened in 2015. Can you believe it's 5 years already since that building's been open? But they have a top-of-the-line HVAC system. That system is bringing in 100% outside air. It's running, filters have been changed. We are upgrading our filters wherever we can. We will be looking to install MERV, up to MERV 13 filters where applicable. In certain areas we cannot, and as long as they're not causing any problems with our systems, because what they can do is really bog down the airflow, we'll use them for safety, and we'll address any issues that come up with that. But our HVAC system at Park Ave is top of the line. It's ideal to keep the windows closed in that building. You have 100% fresh air coming in and 100% of the indoor air exhausted. So there's airflow constantly moving throughout that building. So that was really good news there. We didn't expect any issues, but I was pleased to see that everything's operating as it should. Also, Webster Middle School is not that old. It was built in 2005, so that opened in 2005, as you say. So we're 15 years there. Again, we had the air quality tested, which is the amount of fresh air coming in. They went around and checked each univent and air top units for the flow of air. You can see that the rooftop units are bringing in 100% of outside air through those units, and the classrooms are bringing in 50% more air on a low speed and twice as much as 120% at high speed of the fresh air that's required. So we are bringing a lot of fresh air into the buildings. They also spray down all of the inside to kill any forms of virus that could have grown inside the system. So middle school is in great shape also. The system is operating as normal. Again, there we will be using the better MERV filters where we can. they are not recommended to put in univents around the outside of the building. So we can't use them there, but we've always used MERV 8 filters. So we're still using a good filter, but we can't use the 13 in the univents because it can really break down your system and overwork it, and that's not what we want. And then we move on to the high school, which is our oldest building, and it was the building we were most concerned about. As you can see through the report that there were some issues that we needed to address and fix. Mostly it was the exhaust fans. There were a couple that were broken. I believe there were 4 of them in total that were in the process of being repaired already and 2 that were not working. And then we needed 3 univents. Those are the outside vents in the classroom that needed to repair. I'm happy to say everything has been repaired and everything is 100% operational as far as the HVAC system goes. Again, we are updating filters where we can. The guys have done an outstanding job this summer, cleaning, taking care, working with all these repairs, and they're really taking a lot of pride in keeping the buildings clean and safe for the staff. So I think they deserve a huge shout out and a huge thank you for all their hard work and the way they're monitoring and dealing with issues even as they come up. People come with questions, they do their best to answer them, to get the support that they need, and to make sure that we're resolving any issues as quickly as we can. So I just wanted to say thank you for them, and I'm really happy that the amount of fresh air that we have coming in our buildings is way above what we need to and what's required. So much as that the HVAC company Whaler had talked to me and said, you're probably gonna get some complaints in the wintertime because we have so much fresh air coming in from outside that once we turn on the heat, the 2 systems are going to be fighting, and it's probably going to be pretty cold in some of those rooms. So we got to keep that on our radar as we move into the winter, especially at the high school and some of those rooms that might get chilly with all the fresh air coming directly in those univents. But we feel good about the air that's coming in and the quality of the air that's coming in. Are there any questions about that?
Mr. Siddiqui?
Yes, this is-
I have a question about what's being done for the rooms that have no HVAC and no windows.
So at Park Ave, we are good because the air is circulating, and even at the middle school, we're good. But what we've done as a proactive measure, we've ordered air purifiers to put in those indoor areas. We've also got one for each nurse's office. So those interior rooms at the middle and high school will have air purifiers brought in. But they're still getting fresh air because I just want people to understand that just because it's an inside room and it doesn't have a window, doesn't mean it's getting fresh air. It's getting fresh air from a different source. So our outside windows get air coming in from the univents, but the inside rooms get air brought in from the air handlers on the roof. So even though it's an inside room, it is still getting the fresh air just from the air handler on the roof. But I understand where at the high school, there's no air conditioning really in a lot of those sections. So when it's hot, you can't really open a window. So the air purifier will help with that. I think it's more of in your mind, just helping with the air, where the outside can open the air to get that fresh air in if they're needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? No. Also next I have COVID safety measures. That's just talking about the PPE and the items that were provided in the classrooms. I also want to start out by giving my assistant Cheryl Spink a huge shout out. We have been ordering nonstop since March. It's a lot of work. It's not just going onto Amazon and clicking a button and ordering a bunch of product. We are researching, even though the supplies are on bids, we are researching where can we get our best prices? How much can, we're looking at all these companies, we're getting quotes, we're we are chasing things down. We're looking at delivery dates. How can we get it as soon as possible? And really comparing, trying to do our due diligence. And she's doing a lot of that legwork. And she has become the master of arts at dealing with the state's procurement system, OSD. They have a way you can go online and order through the state. It's not the most user-friendly system. I used to spend about 5 minutes and get frustrated and go elsewhere. And she is rocking that system now. She navigates it well, and she's tracking down items. So she has been a rock star with the ordering, and I thank her for all her help. But because of that, and because of jumping online so early, we were really in great shape when we opened our doors for staff. Every classroom got a package. We have stock, but just for starters, every classroom got a package of alcohol wipes. They got a bucket of 800 wipes. They've got a spray bottle of alcohol to use on the desk with paper towels. They've got gallon jug hand sanitizers for the students. They got small sanitizers personally for them, just for their desks. We have masks, we have shields, we have the face shields, we have gowns. We have ordered the desk shields. Those are coming in. I was told they'd be here next week. We have goggles. We have, oh, what am I missing?
Have it all.
I don't think there's anything that I didn't have in the buildings as far as the hands-on PPE, different levels of gowns for people. We are in good shape. We are in really good shape. I know there are so many districts out there and so many schools who just do not have the supplies. My son's a teacher. He doesn't have any PPE in his classroom. So I just think I'm really pleased and really happy about where we're at. And, you know, a lot of work went into that behind the scenes to make sure we're following procurement laws, to make sure we're getting the necessary, and to make sure we're spending our money wisely. We're not just buying wastefully. We're competitive with pricing, which is always very important to me. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. No. And then busing updates. I'll move on to that. This has also been a lot of fun. It's like putting a puzzle together. In your packets, you should have seen a little chart. I'll stick it up here that kind of looks like this. And then you'll see some memos from Transportation and from the Department of Motor Vehicles. So trying to narrow down transportation is been a challenge nonetheless, but we're getting there. We're working through it. If you want to take a look at the chart that I sent you, I'll kind of walk you through what we've been dealing with and what we're working on. And we'll start at Park Ave at the top. If you look at Park Ave, we have 10 runs. So buses 1 through 10. One of the bus does a double run, so we have 10 runs. So as you know, we have in our district, cohort C, we have cohort B and cohort A. So currently we're starting with cohort C. These are our high needs kids coming in. So I needed bus runs just for our high needs kids to come in. Many of them also will ride on the special ed buses that come in. So you'll see our bus numbers. If you go down and you look at that column, you'll see they're very low on column C. So then what we needed to do is I needed to take those column C kids and go through our student population and say who's in cohort A and who's in cohort B. Because cohort A rides Monday and Tuesday with cohort C, and cohort B rides Wednesday and Thursday with cohort C. So I needed to narrow down our cohorts with the work of the principals and the assistant principals who have been working on this nonstop to say, okay, I have my cohort A's, I have my cohort B's. So now I need to assign them buses and group them together. So I know how many kids are riding in those cohorts. So that's what you'll see in the next two columns to the right of that, columns A and C, columns B and C. That's who are signed up on bus routes right now. And then what we need to do is take a look, once we have those cohorts defined, the next two cohorts show how many are in the same family, because now they can share a seat, right? So in the first two row, in the center two rows, A and C and B and C, those are just number of bodies. If you go to the next row, those are number of seats that I actually need. Because we have 83 passenger buses. We're allowed 27 rows. One row is for the adult, so that narrows me down to 26 rows. So I have 26 rows to seat children, but I can have more than 26 kids if they're family members in a row. Make sense? Okay. So what I've done and what we've been doing, I shouldn't say I, because this has been a huge project with the assistant principals and stuff, is, and the secretaries, as they're getting those surveys back that were sent home, and people are opting out of buses they want to drive, we're taking them off those lists. So the lists have gotten much smaller because now we're half the population on, on A and C day versus the other days. And then people are driving or they're doing remote learning or they're homeschooling or they're commuting them themselves. So I've highlighted the rows that are red. If they're red, that means I'm over max. Even with families, that means I don't have enough rows on the bus to put them in. So if those numbers were so high, I would need more busing, right? I would need more buses to work with the numbers that we have. But just by looking at these numbers, you see the highest is 29 and 30 at the elementary, and it's 31 at the high school. And some of those other routes are low, I can shift some runs. So that's where we're working now. So now we're trying to say, okay, we've got our numbers. Now we can move some of these runs around to try and fit the kids. So if everything goes well, and I'm really knocking on wood, I'm knocking on my desk seriously, I may not be needing any new buses, which is a good thing, which is a really good thing with the regulations here. I'm hoping that I can make this work. My fear is that we don't have 100% of the surveys back. So my fear is that once we get closer to the hybrid, C is not going to be a problem at all. We can manage C. Once we get closer to the hybrid and we bring all those kids back, we're already seeing the closer we get to school, there are more families deciding, I don't want to do remote anymore, I want to come back. So I think I had 5 kids today that were added onto the bus. My fear is that the closer we get, the more that's going to add on, which is going to change our numbers. So it's a very fluid situation. We are keeping it as strict as possible as far as your address. You're starting from home and you're going home. You cannot switch buses. You cannot go to a friend's house. You have to be picked up and dropped off at the same place every day. Otherwise, it's not going to work because those numbers are too close and we're really monitoring where the kids are sitting and what's going on, that we have to be mindful of the buses. I also had to make accommodations we were trying to accommodate the private schools because we're also responsible for the transportation for private schools. It's something that we oversee. So we try to we have 2 runs that go to the private schools. We try to allow 1 bus for St. Joe's and 1 bus for All Saints. So they didn't have to worry about any cross contact between the 2 schools. But the buses were taking way too long because it's just geographical. We have kids, down on Lakeside and down there, and then we have kids on Chase Ave over here, and just spacing them out. They were on the bus for more than an hour, which we cannot have. So we've now combined those routes starting next week. I've been in touch with both schools, And they will be, splitting the town in half and sharing those runs. And they are managing the contact tracing on there. Some logistical things, we are also, you can see a memo from AA Transportation. In the past, there has been no hand sanitizer or anything allowed on the bus because it is considered a flammable product. But with COVID, those times are changing. They've all been working with the Registry of Motor Vehicles, have come out and inspected, and they are now recommending locations on a bus where hand sanitizer can be installed. So we are doing that. We are providing hand sanitizer, the gallon jugs, it will be secured. They're also going to be carrying masks in case kids show up at the bus stops without masks. We will be providing that. We are still working through the logistics of those what ifs. So what if somebody shows up to the bus stop without a mask and then refuses to put it on? What if that happens? Does the bus driver drive away and leave a kid standing on the bus stop? We don't know if mom and dad are still home. We don't know, those kinds of things. So what if somebody gets on the bus and then all of a sudden they're not feeling well, they're sick. So we're working through those protocols. We're just trying to narrow them down. I've got a list of expectations that are just about done, and we will be communicating that with families before they come on. But it has certainly been a task that it's changing by the minute during the day. So are there any questions about transportation? Did I miss anything, Dr. Goguen?
No, I don't think so.
Any questions?
Mrs. Perangeli, just on behalf of, I think, the whole community and the school committee as well, thank you for the effort that you're putting into moving. It sounds like a nightmarish game of Tetris of trying to fit all of these different moving parts into a school bus and keeping them safe along the way, and then dealing with the changes and other contingencies. So no small undertaking. And it would have been much easier to just say we need this many more buses, but that's not the route you're taking, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I also do want to point out, I forgot to mention that we are doing something different that we haven't done before. We are issuing bus passes to all of our kids. So, so that way we can really, it's all about the numbers here. We have to keep each other safe and we have to follow the regulations. So if you don't have a bus pass, you're not riding the bus. So that's another thing that's kind of keeping me up at night is on day 1, 2, 3, when the school year is just starting, how many of those families might show up at the bus stop expecting a ride to school without a bus pass, because they are sending bus passes home. They are mailing them home. And how do I deal with those issues? Things could blossom then too. So it's on our radar. We're hoping that we've reached, I know they have been trying to call every family. I know our assistant principals have been trying to call personally every family to find out, are you coming? Are you riding? What days? So they've been working, they have all been working so hard. So, I want to give also Lisa Fifield a huge shout out, who printed all of the bus passes and laminated them and cut them. So, and had them ready for the schools. That was no small undertaking either. So everybody is just pitching in like crazy. And I couldn't be more thankful to everybody for their assistance. It's certainly not a one-person show around here. That's for sure.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And I have nothing else. That concludes my report if you have no questions.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Moving on, the next item on the agenda, Mrs. Perangeli, don't take a break yet. You're next, I think, under old business. It's the FY20 budget closeout.
Sure, there's really not too much to, we're still working through it. We are in the process. The town has a consultant that is looking to take care of the CARES grant for them and submitting in the reimbursement. So we are working with them and submitting. So as we can move things off of our budget, we are to submit in. So as soon as that's done and it's final, I will bring the final budget back, but whatever's left will be going back to the town, and you will have that number. And it's going to have to be soon, because I was just looking at the calendar today and realized we're in September, and my end of year report is due September 30th, and I haven't even downloaded it yet. So, so we're going to need to get some final numbers sooner rather than later, so we can get going on that. So we'll keep you up to date.
Thank you.
Through the chair, if I could just
Yeah,
make
Mr.
one
Adamopoulos.
recommendation. Since we are giving money back to the town, could that figure, once it's determined, be given to the town's finance committee? Just because I know that it gets brought up on a yearly basis of how much money the school does utilize. I think if they are told that money is actually going back and how much that is, that might give them some credence that we're not just holding on to those funds at the end of the year.
Absolutely. I'll yell it to the roof, from the roof. They'll know. I'll let them know. And actually, you know, I do think that Doug and Tim have been very good about communicating. At least they have with me, and notifying the finance committee of that. But they will definitely, once it's all said and done, I will let everybody know how much we've returned back to the town, because it really has been a collaborative effort. We're all trying to do our best and make sure we're good for FY21, and make sure that, you know, we're also getting some free cash back if we can. And that's where this money will come into play.
Thank you, Mrs. Perangeli.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda under new business is the discussion and approval of high school low-risk athletic program.
I'm just going to introduce this a little bit, and then I'm going to have the athletic director and the high school principal jump in. We met with the Board of Health, and we've been meeting to discuss when we can start sports. We had a meeting on September 1st, and we met with the Board of Health, Jen Sullivan, and we met with Tony, the athletic director, and the principal, and to discuss what the regulations are around low-risk categories. So tonight we bring to you a fall athletic plan where we'd like to start golf and girls and boys cross country as they fall under the low risk category. And I will pass it to the athletic director, Tony, to speak a little bit about how we came to this conclusion and how we'd like to proceed slowly with adding sports in.
Good evening, everybody. As Ms. Goguen said, we are looking to start out with cross country and golf right now, because those fall under the low risk. As everything else in education right now, it changes daily. We were under the assumption that everyone was going to follow suit, and we just got a curveball thrown at us today, me and Mr. Thomas. Cross country and golf looks like it's, you know, it's very, I think it can be done. It's obviously, you know, some modifications that take place for golf as well as cross country. Cross country being probably the more so because of the you know, the lane changes. You're only gonna have 10 people out there. There's a slew of different modifications that need to be done, but I'm very confident with us hosting an event, especially down the beach, we'll be able to do that. Golf, as everyone knows, that's been the sport across the country right now that everyone's been playing. It's the craze right now. I think that our kids have been out there playing anyway, but we will have to follow the state guidelines with the separation of tee times for the individuals to go out there. We'll have to follow the our state modifications because we do play at Thompson too. So they'll have to keep pins in instead of having pins out because Connecticut allows them to do that right now. Speaking with my coaches, they're very confident they can uphold all the modifications that are put forth. Questions from anybody? I'm sure there's some out there.
Through the chair.
Yep, go ahead, Nick.
I guess my only real question is, I mean, I understand not having a sport like soccer play games and travel, I do know it's mentioned at the bottom of this letter that we'd come back and visit, but what's the mentality of not allowing a sport like soccer to start with practices where they can kind of break out into different cohorts on the field and do drills? I know, for example, Worcester's allowing soccer to just go forward in general. The only reason I'm bringing this up is that even when I went to school, a lot of these students go to school and keep their grades up so they can qualify for their sport. And if we're taking that sport off the table, we're putting kids in a disadvantage to want to participate, as fully as they were last year.
Well, that's a good question, Nick. Obviously, that was one of the curveballs that was thrown at us today. We thought that a lot of our Southern Worcester County League schools were going to follow, that would go to fall two. We just found out today that it's only us in Millbury right now, out of the 12 Swickle schools that are leaning towards fall two. Finding out today that in Central Mass, I believe there's 63 schools. We are only one of 6 now that are not going to be playing soccer. I understand, as we talked with Jen and Ms. Goguen, our Board of Health lady, that we were going to try to start slow, but our fear right now is that we might not be able to get a schedule for that fall 2 season. So I think that's something that we might need to have a revisit and have another meeting, and maybe, like I said, start slowly with that and maybe get some games, because it is. My fear is that we come back in February 22nd, which is going to be that fall 2 season after the winter. As we know, in a perfect world, we're not in Florida. We're up here in New England. It's going to be very difficult for us to get kids out there playing soccer. Football might be a little different because they're used to that cold weather and the ground being hard, but soccer is a totally different beast. So it's something I think that we need to look into a little bit. I think that we can move forward with the golf and cross country with no problem. But the soccer may turn into an issue down the road for us right now. Believe me, I thought we were going to have more teams that were going to be playing in that fall 2 season, which we were going to be able to maybe utilize their fields a little bit, like maybe Shepherd Hill, Millbury. They thinking that they might have a new turf field at that time. Nichols, we thought about that. It might be difficult, because obviously Nichols going to be coming into their seasons at that time, trying to fire their football and soccer seasons in, their field hockey and whatnot, utilizing their turf field. So we're going to be looking to our, we were hoping that Auburn, because they were in our pod, but they're going to be playing soccer right now. So there's a lot of different, like I said, it's changing daily, and it seems like everybody's kind to, me and Mr. Thomas talked about that. We thought we were all staying on the same page. But now it seems like it's like every man for themselves right now.
And I do agree that I think getting those kids onto a field in February is going to be very difficult. Not only will it be cold and frozen, but if it snows, are we going to go out there and plow, football and soccer fields and get these kids out there?
Yeah, that's going to be difficult. Obviously, not having turf, nobody really wants to put plows out on turf fields. They snow blow them a little bit. But it's multiple storms that come usually during that time at the end of February, and you're kind of fighting against the elements. Like I said, this is a work in progress. I'm willing to revisit this a little bit too, as long as Ms. Goguen and Ms. Sullivan want to look at it a little bit. Like I said, today was just it's every day. It seems like there's something that's changing right now, and then with seeing what's going to happen and what's going to unfold. And like I said, now the whole Mid-Watch division, that's the Neshobas and the Wachusett's and all those schools out there, all the way down to their lower level, they're all playing right now. So, I'm
Tony,
going to research it a little bit, but Ms. Goguen, go ahead.
yeah, so if the fall season doesn't start until October 5th, we have some time, right? So
Yes.
if everybody's playing soccer now, it's not going to make sense to play soccer in the February. But I think we definitely need to have another meeting with the Board of Health director, because that's part of what we have to do to process this. And then our next school committee meeting is what, September 22nd? We still have time to add the soccer in, with knowing what the moving pieces are, seeing how we just found out today that we're one of 6 schools not playing soccer. My recommendation would be for us to schedule that meeting with Jen, and then put the logistics together and bring it back to the committee on the 22nd And that would give us time before October 5th to get this rolling.
Mr. Peranto, are the soccer, are they practicing right now? They're doing anything?
Nope, nobody's practicing. Our fields have been closed down. You know, some of these kids that may be playing AAU or an outside organization might be playing elsewhere, but our fields have been closed down since the COVID.
Now, I don't, my kids are very young, right? But they're at soccer practice tonight, town soccer. How is that different than high school soccer? I know obviously they're much older, but how is that?
I was under the assumption that the youth soccer was not going to start, but now, like you said, I'm hearing that they have started now in town.
Yeah.
So that's a question that we're going to have to ask Ms. Sullivan. Why is youth soccer able to do it and we're not trying to push forward our high school?
Right. Yeah. Youth soccer started a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, but yeah.
Through the chair, if you want, I can offer some insight into the Webster Youth Soccer information. Webster Youth Soccer has to comply by Mass Youth Soccer. So through Mass Youth Soccer and Midland Area Youth Soccer, we had to submit the full plan into the Board of Health for approval. So there are some restrictions depending upon the age group in terms of what you can do, how many people you can have at the field, and all of that. So we did review that full plan with the Board of Health to get approval so that the season could start this Saturday.
Yeah. It's very exciting. I know my kids were over the moon to have an opportunity to be with their friends, and they're little, and they were just so happy to be out there running around with other little people.
Just another caveat, maybe people are aware of the modifications that are going to be taking place for soccer right now.
Yeah.
It's very unlike what you've seen in the past. Right now, the modifications state that there will be no throw-ins, so you cannot touch the ball. There'll be no direct kicks. The goalkeeper or fullback or whoever it may be on goal kicks, they cannot kick the ball over the 50-yard line. There's no heading. There's no contact at any time. My belief is that I think with these people moving forward, maybe they know a little bit more than me, but I'm hearing through the buzzword that the modifications are going to change as it gets closer to opening day. This is why the Midwatch and everyone's leaning towards this fall one season.
Through the chair, Mr. Peranto.
Yes.
So I read the superintendent's update, and there was a meeting with the other districts last September 5th or September 3rd, where you had to state whether we were participating in order to be part of the schedule. So I was concerned because we hadn't had a school committee meeting yet where it was discussed and decided whether or not soccer and I'll say volleyball, because that's another one being considered, would participate at the beginning of the season, whatever that date is now, October 1st or October 5th. But you needed that information by September 3rd in order to be in the schedule. So I wonder if we delay a decision until September 22nd, are we going to miss out again on being in the schedule?
That's a
and
possibility.
rotation of games? Like what is the deadline now?
Well, the deadline was last Thursday. I had to get an answer into them, and that's why we had the Board of Health meeting. Chris Smith is the athletic director over at Net Monkeys, our DAC Division II president right now, and I reached out to him knowing these other guidelines that just came forth right now, knowing that our cohorts through the Southern Wisconsin League have jumped ship and gone a different direction right now. So everything was thrown, like I said, in different directions. So I reached out to him, and he just told me, let me know what happens after the school committee meeting, and we can definitely get you into a schedule if need be. But like I said, if we wait long enough, if we wait too long, then it may be a problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Through the chair, I guess without committing to actually participating in the season, are we still unable to begin practices underneath those guidelines that came out from the state? I mean, just once again, the only reason I'm asking is that getting these kids to commit to that their sport is going to play, may drive them to make sure that they are showing up for school and doing their work. And I think that's my biggest fear, is that if we don't give them any sort of guidance, they may go 2 weeks without really participating. And if we do start a season, we're now going to be 3 or 4 weeks behind those schools, with any sort of practice time.
Well, there is a Chapter 40 relaxation, and that was intended for fall sports that aren't going to have a season, like football, and if we move soccer, so those teams could have a practice. But like Mr. Peranto said earlier, problem was the deadline that he had to submit things. There were a lot of schools out there that hadn't had their school committee meetings. So when we originally looked at this, there are schools in our pod, most of them were saying they were not going to be playing soccer in fall one. They've had school committee meetings and parent input, and a lot of them have changed their mind. So that's one of the issues that Ms. Naparata is talking about too. If we don't play a fall one schedule, and all these other schools do, if we push it off to fall two, there's not going to be a lot of teams to play. They will have already played their season.
So it may make sense to make the decision tonight then, in light of all of this. The one thing that we have to have is a school committee approval on any sports, because we are opening school in a remote setting. So per DESE, in order for our children to play sports, it must go through the school committee.
Through the chair. Mr. Peranto, I'd like to thank you for all your hard work in dealing with this and considering the safety of our students at the same time. I think that's very important, and I'm sure it's very, very difficult for you, and I appreciate what you are doing.
Thank you. Like I said, it changes daily. The rules change daily, so we got to stay on top of things right now. And we just want to see the best for our kids right now. And, that's what all these meetings are all about right now. And I think that getting the kids out there, I think like Mr. Adamopoulos stated too, is in the best interest for the kids right now too, to keep them engaged.
So what is the desire of the committee?
Ms. Siddiqui?
Mrs. Blythe?
If we're looking for a motion to approve soccer, I can make a motion, or I don't know if I should make a motion to approve soccer with golf and cross country. So I guess
All together, Sheila.
all together. Okay, all right.
And I'm sorry, through the chair, is volleyball being discussed at all at this point?
I can answer that question for you. Volleyball in Central Mass has been put off to the fall 2 season because we're trying to limit our indoor facilities. The only people that will be playing that is Eastern Mass, because they're a different breed out there. They're playing all sports. I'm hearing they're not even playing 7-on-7 football out in Eastern Mass. So they're following different, not state guidelines, but they're going to go full throttle at it.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Peranto, if I may, are there other sports that are going to be put off for this season other than volleyball and soccer that we should just bring into the discussion before we make a motion?
Well, the sports that we were looking to push the fall to were going to be football, soccer, volleyball, and competitive cheer, fall cheer. Again, cheer, obviously they need the inside facilities as well as volleyball. So my belief was that we shouldn't allow anybody into our inside facilities. If cheer wants to do that 10 practice session that they're allowing, just to keep the girls engaged, so be it. They can do their cheers outside, and they can meet with the coach outside, obviously following guidelines. And I'd be all for that, just to keep those cheerleaders involved. But volleyball, like I said, not being inside. So all it would be football. That would obviously is that nobody is playing that in Central Mass because of this. I think what's going to happen is they're all going to see what the NFL does this weekend and what happens from there in college football, that the major sports that are playing right now. So they're using those people as the front runners to see what's going on with that. And everybody has pushed football off to the fall too, which will start, I believe it's February 22nd.
Ms. Siddiqui,
Mrs. Blythe.
one more question. Mr. Peranto, again, I'd like to echo Ms. Millett's words. Thank you so much. I know how hard everybody has worked to put these schedules together. They're just constantly moving. Would we have to vote on any team practicing, or is that just included in the guidelines?
That would be included in the guidelines. If you guys approve this to move forward with this, it's an October 5th startup date right now.
For practices?
That's a start for us for Central Mass right now, even though some districts, Central Mass decided that October 5th, only because we wanted to allow the schools to get started. Don't go by Eastern Mass again or Western Mass, because they may be starting September 18th. For Central Mass, we decided as a collaborative group that we would start October 5th to get the schools up and running.
Okay.
And then our schedules would be, a 10-day period after that. So that would be an October 15th game day starting. Although that they say because cross country and golf don't need a 10-day startup period, they may be able to start schedules a little bit earlier.
Through the chair. Can we vote on what is presented to us tonight, which is golf and cross country, and allowing Mr. Peranto to be able to come in contact with our town health people to bring up soccer practice and soccer, because we could still vote on that at our next meeting after he gets all his material and discussions.
I think we can vote on whatever, I'm sorry.
We can talk about it, vote on it now when he did not have that planned and he needs to research that and get it done.
Sure. So we can vote on whatever motion is made. But it sounds like if we were to make a motion to vote on soccer, it would be pending approval from the Board of Health for whatever plan would be put into place. So we would need to have that if we did so decide to vote on all of it tonight. There's no feasibility for volleyball, am I right? Or is there any possible way that we can get kids playing that? It seems like it's a lot more contact.
The only thing they could do with volleyball, again, would be there are states allowing those 10 practices in, I guess, out of season coaching type thing, because they would be pushed to the fall too. But they would have to we'd have to set up nets outside. And I was speaking with our current girls volleyball coach, and he would be just doing some type of conditioning, getting to see the girls, making sure their academics are in order. They'd be doing some bumping outside with their own personal volleyballs, nothing major with nets or anything outside.
Is that something that we want to consider? Or I don't want to push the envelope too far. I just want to make sure that we leave no stone unturned when it comes to getting kids out there and however is safe and feasible.
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Just
the motion being that we approve what we have now for golf and cross country and soccer practice and games pending contact with the local Board of Health.
So just to clarify, your motion, Ms. Millett, is to approve everything presented and add soccer in to practice and be a part of the games?
Pending on contact with the Board of Health.
Before we vote on that motion, Mr. Peranto, can you just, if you don't mind, not to put you on the spot, answer what I was asking about the volleyball piece, just so we get that out of the way?
Like I said, volleyball would be volleyball, cheer, and football now would be allowed to do those 10 practices, which when on discussion with Ms. Goguen, and I thought it was a pretty good idea, is that we wouldn't start that up until at least a week after the October 5th date, to at least get those kids involved with the sports that are currently active and participating in games, because they only have 10 practices anyway, up to 90-minute periods. So we would do some signups and whatnot for that after that October 5th timeline. So that way those other coaches could get their teams on the way and then be able to start up those other 3 sports if they wanted to. And we thought it was safe for those kids to participate in those 10 practices that are allowed through the state.
Perfect. Oh, so we're not going to run out of time on these. We'll go slow on
Nope.
those.
And
Perfect.
here's another caveat that people might not know of that's happened through the state is that at any time that something happens or we have COVID cases or whatnot, or we feel it's unsafe, we could pull out and then sign a waiver for these schools to participate in that fall 2 season also.
That's good to know.
Through the chair, I do have a concern with the wording of Ms. Millett's motion in regards to the Board of Health. I know how closely the district is working with the Board of Health. I just wonder, it seems as though DESE and MIAA have released the guidance and that it's per school committee approval regarding the participation in the sports. So I'm wondering if either Dr. Goguen or Mr. Paranto could speak to any obstacles we could potentially face from our town's Board of Health outside of any COVID cases. Like, is there further approval required from the Board of Health to make this motion and approve the motion and move forward with Mr. Paranto scheduling the games?
It's my understanding that we want to work collaboratively with the Board of Health in terms of starting up our athletic program. The regulations that I'm aware of do require the school committee to make that decision. We've been working hand in hand with our Board of Health on all of our safety measures. I know that she would be here, but I think she's on vacation. I know that safety is the priority. I think that Mr. Paranto and myself and Mr. Thomas can have a meeting with her, and we can assure you that we will be following the guidelines, and I think she will support us. And I think the obstacles that we potentially could face are COVID cases, but following all of the safety measures will be under the responsibility of the athletic director and the coaches, which are very, very clearly outlined, and we will monitor it. So I think, you know, I don't, to answer your question, I don't think she has to, I think we want her to approve it because we want to work collaboratively. I think ultimately the responsibility of approval lies on the school committee. And that's merely because we're starting in a remote setting. If we were in a hybrid setting, we wouldn't have to require that school committee approval, is my understanding. And Lisa did mention that the rec town soccer had to give a plan to the Board of Health. So I think, you know, we just want to continue to work kind of on this unified front so everybody knows who's doing what. It's that two-way communication.
Mrs. Siddiqui?
Mrs. Blythe.
I just have one more clarifying question. Mr. Paranto, do you know, seeing as soccer was previously planned for fall 2, do you know if we have coaching positions lined up and posted?
We have not posted it, coaching positions yet because we're waiting for school committee approval. Once approval is set forth, then we will submit Lori will put the thing out there for the coaches to submit their applications. I'm not sure. I know that I've reached out to some of the coaches. Some are maybe on the fence, but maybe they're just waiting for some guidance from what we plan to go forth with right now.
Sure. Okay, thank you. So after
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mrs. Blythe, but
no, please.
We have a motion that Mrs. Millett made, and I just did not feel like we were quite ready to vote yet because we had a little bit more information gathering to do. So I think we probably need to consider that motion. Am I right? Yes? Yes. So Mrs. Millett, if I remember it correctly, and please correct me, your motion was to approve golf, cross country, and soccer to begin.
Pending meetings with the Board of Health.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Lori, we have a motion and a second. Would you pull the committee, please?
Member Naprata,
Yes.
Member Blythe,
Yes.
Member Millet,
Yes.
Member Adamopoulos,
Yes.
Chair Siddiqui.
Yes. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work that you all have put into figuring this out.
Thank you, everyone. We got a long road ahead here, and like I said, I'm confident that our coaches and our athletic staff can make sure it's a safe measure for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Pronto. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the memorandum of agreement with the Webster Educators Association and Instructional Assistants, COVID-19 related.
Thank you. We only have one memorandum of agreement to bring forward to the school committee tonight. This one is for the Webster Education Association. We're still working on the paraprofessional agreement, and we will be hopefully bringing that to you at the next school committee. There's been many hours and collaborative conversation to come up with this very detailed memorandum of understanding between the WEA Association and the Webster Public Schools. I want to thank everyone who was participating in all of these meetings, starting with Ellen Jeffers, Colleen Nassis, Meg Lazarowski, Monique Perangeli, Kathy Barris, Kathy Naparata, myself, and Lynn, and that's the teacher side. This is a very, very detailed memorandum of understanding that outlines all the health and safety precautions that we have taken to the T. And it's very thorough, and I'm pleased to be speaking on behalf of both the district and the teachers. Ellen Jeffers was unable to be here tonight, that this memorandum of understanding did pass, and we are pleased to bring it forward to you. There's one thing that I do want to just point out. As you have seen, there's a pattern of us all saying, oh, this just changed today, or this changed today, or we just got this latest news. This memorandum of understanding has the prior data in it of if there's a COVID case, we will be closing off that area for 24 hours and then not having anyone in that area for 48 hours. They have come out with new lesser requirements, which the teachers union and group of people are aware of, that says that based on the case, the school area could be closed for 12 hours, could be used after 12 hours of being closed. So this I'm bringing to your attention because should we ever have a case at Bartlett High School where our cohorts are not staying in one room, kids are moving around the building, we would very carefully have to look at close contact and how we would be closing things. So I trust our relationship with the teachers union and that we would be working together on that language because it did decrease. And again, safety is going to prioritize any decision that we make, but I did want to bring that up. And I believe I thanked everybody that participated. Did I forget anyone? Kathy, Mo?
I can't think of anybody that you forgot.
It really was a good process, and the memorandum is in front of you tonight for your approval.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between the Webster Educators Association and the Webster School District.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lori, would you poll the committee, please?
Member Naprata,
Yes.
Member Blythe,
Yes.
Member Millet,
Yes.
Member Adamopoulos,
Yes.
and Chair Siddiqui.
Yes. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will need your signatures on this. It looks like maybe just the school board chair. and the
Okay.
president of the union. Thank you.
So it looks like, is there any other questions or comments from the committee?
Mrs. Siddiqui,
Mrs. Blythe?
I'm probably looking for guidance on this, but I really want to be clear on the motion that we made for sports, right? That we don't really need the Board of Health's approval. So is it feasible to make a motion to remove that piece of it? I'm just I just want it to be clear. I'm just not sure of the rules.
It sounds like, if I'm understanding, while you would like the approval of the Board of Health, you're looking to make a motion that we just approve the sports.
Right. And so my motion would be, I would like to make a motion to approve soccer along with golf and cross country to move forward for the fall 1 season, and then just end it there. So I just don't know if that's feasible or not, but of course we want the approval, but as I'm thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't need the Board of Health's approval. I just don't want it to come back.
Personally, don't think we're going to have an issue with the Board of Health. If that helps in any way, shape, or form, I think that we certainly need the school committee's approval. I'm not sure where the regulations lie with the Board of Health, so I can't speak to that.
Okay.
But I don't think we're going to have an issue. As we have said, we'll be meeting, Tony and myself and Mr. Thomas, with her to go over the safety guidelines. I think everybody understands that the kids need this, and that we're going to do this together. So I think you can make the decision and they will follow it, but I don't foresee any issues. So I guess that's what I want to say. I don't foresee any issues.
Mm-hmm.
The chair, did our vote allow for the other 3 sports to have those 10 practices, or does that have to be a separate vote to just allow for those, I guess, 10 relaxed practices that will meet the guidance?
Those were not included in the motion.
Okay.
So maybe I should make a recommendation that you include in the motion that we will be following the guidance, the specific safety guidance that the athletic director is staying up late at night trying to read and make sure that we all follow. And maybe the motion needs to be restated clearly, just that these are the guidance, this is what we're following.
So it sounds like the motion would need to be that we would proceed with a season for golf, cross country, and soccer, and practices for cheer and volleyball in alignment with the requirements set forth by the state and by Mr. Paronto.
And football too.
Thank you. And football.
Was that your official motion?
Well, I can say it and you can say so moved.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Lori, would you poll the committee, please?
Member Naprata?
Yes.
Member Blythe?
Yes.
Member Millet?
Yes.
Member Adamopoulos?
Yes.
And Chair Siddiqui?
Yes. The motion passes unanimously. Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? The next item on the agenda is the review, transfer, signing of warrants, bills, payroll, and vouchers. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Mo, you need signers. You're muted. You're muted.
Can't hear you.
Yes, please. A warrant designee and a payroll designee would be awesome.
I'll be in tomorrow.
Thank you.
Me too.
Perfect. Okay. If there are no other questions or comments from the committee, I will entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lori, would you pull the committee, please?
Member Naprata,
Yes.
Member Blythe,
Yes.
Member Millet,
Yes.
Member Adamopoulos,
Yes.
Chair Siddiqui.
Yes, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Night.